kids go back, I will invite you to flip with me to John chapter 21. That'll be our main text for the day, looking at what was called the miraculous catch. There's actually two different miraculous catches recorded within the Gospels. And the other Gospels record the one at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, and this one is after the Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection that we're going to read. But this is thought it'd be appropriate to talk about it today as we celebrate the resurrection last week. And last week, if you were here, you heard me say a few times that Christ came back to establish the church. And I think that's a lot of what we're going to see happening today in today's story. But before we get there, I want to just share a little bit with you. We're going to see Simon, son of John, used very often, and that is referring to Peter. And so that can be a little confusing. And so Peter in our Bible, as we most often know him, has very different names. Simon, Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, obviously. Cephas, the rock, right? So he has all these different names. So before we jumped in, I wanted to explain to you just a minute of why he is called Peter. And so his birth name is Simon. Then Jesus has declared that he is going to be the rock that he'll build his church on. And when Jesus declares this, he's speaking a language called Aramaic. And the term for Aramaic, or be rock, says you will be known as the rock from now on that I build my church on. That is Cephas. And so Jesus calls him Cephas. And then in the Greek language, that's translated over to Petrus, Petros, very close to Peter, obviously. And so we get Peter, meaning rock. And so that's where we end up getting Peter. And very often in the Bible, we see him as Peter, the disciple. We see his letter titled after his name, Peter. But in the book of John, in the Gospels, there's only 3 different times where Jesus refers to him as Simon. Jesus most often calls him Peter. There are 3 times he refers to him as Simon. The first is when he finds him the first time and says, Simon, come follow me and be a fisher of men. Simon was one who was a fisherman of fish, and Jesus called him and said, Simon, come follow me. The other time is when he declares, you are correct, I am the Christ, Simon, son of John. Simon, son of John, you will be the rock I build my church on. So the first time is when he calls him to follow him. The second time is when Jesus declares, you'll be the rock I build my church on. And then the third time is what we're reading today. And so I wanted just to set that out there for us, just that there's an importance when Jesus calls Peter Simon. When Jesus is calling Peter Simon, there's something significant happening. And so we'll see him referred to as Simon several times. And so I think there's something significant today happening. And so in John chapter 21, verses 4 through 5, to start us off. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you caught any fish? No, they answered. Jesus returns to find his disciples going back to what they knew before. Right? If you think about it, 3 years ago, Jesus starts calling his disciples. His ministry was about 3 years long. He calls many of his disciples from fishing, the career of fishing and catching fish, and that was how they made their money. Jesus has been crucified. The resurrection has happened. However, the disciples, after his crucifixion, went back to what they knew before. They went back to how they could live their lives previous to Christ. And I think that's important to understand, just because so often we see people do that. When hard times do come, we see people go back to what was their familiar, what was their comfort zone before. But we don't serve a Christ who is dead. We serve a Christ who is risen. And so there's no need to go back to what we were doing before, though Jesus catches them here, not doing what he called them to do, being fishers of men. They're going back to make their living as fishermen. Continuing on in verse 6 through 9. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say it, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from the shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on them, and some bread. Peter finds out it's Jesus on the shore, and Peter's always one, I think, to be very flamboyant, very outgoing, very extravagant, very loud about his faith. He has no problem displaying his faith. And he says, I'm not waiting for this boat to get to the shore. And he jumps out, and I would love, I would be way too much of a stretch, but I would love if this could connect back to Jesus or Peter walking on water that we talked about a while back. But Peter jumps out of the boat nonetheless, and he runs to Jesus. His Lord is there on the shore, and he takes off for his Lord because that's where his Lord is. He cannot wait. He goes to Jesus. You read a little bit further there. It says the number of fish they caught is 153. And I wish there's some more proof to that. But one of the beliefs about the number of that is that they believe that there were known at this time known to be 153 different species of fish. And so some of the belief is that this was signifying that Jesus had literally given them every creature of the sea they knew at that time. But there's not enough proofs. But they have this miraculous catch. They pull it in, and they get to shore. And when they get to shore, there's a fire of coals, we're told there. A fire of coals happening, and there's fish and bread on. In the Bible, there's only two different times this term is used, this Greek term. I don't have a clue what it is, but there's only two different times it is used. Once here and another time in John. In the Gospel of John, of the fires mentioned, there's only two times that there is the mention of a coal fire. And if you've been around a coal fire, and I'm sure all of us have at a grill or something, charcoal's burning, we have a familiar scent, right? And that scent can make us think back to grilling out. We come outside and our neighbor's barbecuing, and it makes us think we should have something good to eat tonight. That smells good. Scents have a way of doing that. When we smell something familiar, it takes us back. I can still think of the scent of my grandmother's house. I can still think of the scent of the laundry that my best friend's mother used growing up. And when they moved to Canada several years later, and I went to their house for the first time in Canada, it still smelled the same. It smelled like their home. It's a comfort. And so as they pull up onto the beach here, and they see this fire of coal, there's no doubt the scent of the coals. There's no doubt a scent of the fires taking place. And so I want to jump back to the only other time this term is used within the Bible. And it comes from John chapter 18. In John 18, we see this term, coal fire. And I want to read into this a little bit and just say, I think this is probably what Peter is reminded of. When he smells this familiar scent, he's reminded of the last time he was around a coal fire, recorded in the book of John. He's reminded of this. And so in John chapter 18, verse 17 through 18, and then jumping down to 25 through 27. Just after Jesus was arrested. You aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you? She asked Peter. He replied, I am not. It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. Jumping down to 25. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there, warming himself. So they asked him, you aren't one of the disciples too, are you? And he denied it, saying, I am not. One of the high priest's servants' girls, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him in the garden? And again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow. As Peter's standing around this fire, he's got this sense of this smell, and it's reminding him, I think it would be, of not only the last time he was at a fire, but of the fact that he denied his Lord. He denied Jesus, the one that he just jumped out of the boat for and declared my Lord, right? He jumps out of the boat for his Lord, but he just was around a coal fire and denied his Lord. And so that is heavy on Peter's mind, I would believe, at this time, as we read 15, 16, and 17 in John 21. Verse 15. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus had asked him a third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. We get this little story here. 3 times that Peter is asked, do you love me? He's asked by Jesus 3 times, do you love me? 3 times correlating to the fact that he just denied his Lord 3 times around a coal fire. At this point, Jesus doesn't just forget, but he restores Peter. by asking him, do you love me? One time for each time Peter denied him. However, it's much more than that. These verses in English, they look about exactly the same. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. Feed my sheep, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. But they're not the same. They are not the same. The first one, for instance, when they had finished eating, Jesus said, Simon, the son of John, do you love me more than these? He says, more than these. Do you love me more than these disciples? Peter, do you love me more than the rest of these? Because when Jesus predicted that Peter was going to deny him, or someone was going to deny him, when Jesus predicted that in the upper room, what happens is Peter predicts, or Jesus predicts that. Peter stands up and declares, not I, Lord. Even if all fall away, I will remain true and faithful to you. It's almost as if when Jesus is denying or predicting his betrayal and his denial, Peter declares, not me. I get what you're saying, Jesus. I understand. Yeah, some of these guys, I could see how they don't love you the way I love you, but I love you more than the rest of them. Even if they all fall away, Jesus, I'm still here. I have your back, Jesus. And so Jesus comes straight to him and says, do you love me more than these? You claim to have loved me more than the rest of these disciples. You claim to have said that you will not fall away if all others do. But Peter, it was you who was going to deny me 3 times. So do you love me more than these? So the question, first of all, is a little bit different there. But if we look at the original language, the Greek, and I know I feel like I talk about the Greek too much, but it's just so significant. In the Greek language, there are several different words that mean love. In the asking by Jesus, we get the word agape. And this is the word that's used in John 3:16, for God so loved the world. It's used to describe the love of God throughout the Bible. And so this love is a perfect love. And so when Jesus says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He's saying, do you love me wholeheartedly? Do you love me the way I describe God's love for you? Do you love me more than anything else? Do you love me more than these? And Peter answers him with, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. But Peter changes the word. It's still love in our language, but he changes the Greek word. He doesn't say agape, he says phileo. And if you know about Philadelphia being the city of brotherly love, phileo is the root word there. Phileo means friendly, a love of a friend, like a brother. And so Simon Peter answers the question of, do you love me wholeheartedly? Do you love me how God loves me? And he says, yes, Jesus, I love you like a friend. I love you like a friend. I think he is hesitant to say I agape you because he knows that just recently he denied even knowing Jesus. How can I declare that I love you wholeheartedly? How can I declare that I love you the way God loves me if I cannot accept you, if I cannot acknowledge my presence in yours, if I cannot go without denying you? Jesus responds to him and says, feed my sheep, or feed my lambs, I apologize. He says, feed my lambs. Take care of the baby sheep. Take care of those new Christians. Then Jesus asked again in 16, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Here again, Jesus uses the word agape. He cuts off the these. He's not worried about this love compared to the others this time, but he's still saying, do you love me wholeheartedly? Do you love me with the love I described of God having for you? And Peter answers once again, yes, you know that I love you. You know that I love you like a friend. He sticks with his phileo. He says, I love you like a friend. I cannot dare come to saying that again. I was so boastful. I thought I did, but I can't do it again because I denied you. And Jesus says, take care of my sheep. Don't feed them. Don't take care of my lambs, but take care of my sheep. And then the third time, the same way in English as it is the second one. Simon, son of John, do you love me? Know these. But this time Jesus does something different. He doesn't say, do you love me wholeheartedly? He doesn't use the term agape. He uses the term phileo. He says, Peter, do you love me like a friend? Do you love me as close as a brother? Do you love me that way? Peter was hurt because Jesus had asked him a third time. There's several different reasons why people think he was hurt. John says right there, though, that he was hurt because he was asked a third time. That's John's interpretation. Maybe him and Peter had a conversation later about it. But I go home and I ask my wife 3 times in a row if she loves me. I think she's going to be hurt, or maybe I would end up hurt. I'm not sure. But there's a little bit of doubt there that Peter is understanding. Peter is thinking that Jesus doesn't trust him, that Jesus might not really believe he loves him. Peter might be hurt because Jesus has changed the standard. He went from, do you love me wholeheartedly? Do you love me like a friend? Maybe Peter thinks Jesus is saying, that's all you can do, is love me like a friend. Maybe it's because at the third time, Peter's reminded again of the fact that he denied Jesus 3 times. So Jesus says, do you love me like a friend? Peter was hurt and he responded with, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And he says phileo again. He doesn't rise up to agape. He says phileo. He says, you know I love you like a friend. You know you're as close as a brother. We're as close as we can get. And I think Peter's having this anguish. I think Peter's having this hard time here of, I can't say I love you that way. I can't say I can love you that way, Jesus, because I failed. I did not do it. Jesus ends that statement with, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep, Peter. Now, I don't want to talk this down and make it clear, seem like we don't have to love Jesus wholeheartedly, that Jesus doesn't want us to love him with our whole heart, that Jesus doesn't expect all of our love, that if we can just call Jesus friend, that's enough. That's not what this is about. But Jesus does change his answer there. He changes the term there from agape to phileo. And it's not because the standard has changed, because the standard has remained the same. The standard has been that Jesus wants our all. Jesus wants whatever we can offer to him. The widow's offering, for example, when she throws in what she throws into the temple offering, and his disciples make note of how little she gave. And he says she gave all. She gave more than the rest because she gave all she had. Jesus accepts Peter, and he takes what he has to offer. He understands that Peter can't say that. He takes what Peter can genuinely give him instead of these large words like agape, this oversized love that Peter couldn't live up to once. He doesn't want Peter to fail again. He wants Peter to give genuinely what Peter can give to Jesus. And so he takes that genuineness, he takes that phileo love, and he accepts his love because it's genuine. And that's what Christ desires from us. He desires whatever it is we have to offer him. In 2 Timothy 4:7, we get this really great verse. Many of you will be familiar with it. About Paul and his thought on his life and how he lived his life. It says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. I have fought the good fight. I didn't knock out my opponent. I didn't knock him out in the first round. I didn't demolish them. I didn't destroy them. I wasn't perfect with my punches. I fought the fight. I fought the fight. Paul doesn't even say he won the fight. I believe from reading Paul's text, though, that he won the fight. But I fought the fight. I ran the race. I finished the race. I didn't win the race. I wasn't Usain Bolt. I wasn't the fastest sprinter, maybe. He just says, I finished the race. The standard is not perfection. The standard is not completion. The standard is not the love of God. The standard is all that we have to offer. And for some of us, that might be a lot. And for some of us, some days that might be a lot. Some days it might not be very much. The standard is that we can give God whatever we have. In the John passage, Jesus tells them, feed my lambs. Take care of those baby lambs. Peter, you're going to be the rock that the church is built on. Take care of those new Christians, those baby lambs, those baby sheep. Take care of them. Feed them. And the second passage says, take care of my sheep. Don't just feed them, but when those lambs become sheep, when they grow, take care of them, guide them, direct them, right? Live life with them. And then lastly, he says, feed my sheep. When those lambs have grown, when those lambs are disciples, when those lambs are Christians, Peter, you are the one who is going to feed them. You're going to provide them spiritual nourishment. You're going to guide them. You're going to direct them. But now I want you to feed them so that they can turn around and feed others. Peter is the one who becomes the rock. Peter is the rock of the church. If you're not familiar with why Rome is the capital of the Catholic Church, it is because that is where Peter went and started a church. And since Peter was the rock that the church was to be built on, the Catholics have believed that Peter was the first pope. And so they remained in Rome because that's where the first pope, the rock that the church would be built on, started. Peter is to take care of the Christians. If Christ had not resurrected, who knows? Maybe Peter would have been a fisher, fishing for fish for the next several years before his death. But he has been restored here to Peter, the rock. Simon, son of John, you are no longer Simon again. You are Peter. You're the one I build my church on, not because of your perfection, not because of your willingness to do everything, not because you're amazing, but because you're going to give me what you can give me. And I trust you to give me that. Not because of his perfection, not because of his ability to agape Jesus, but his ability to love him with whatever he has, his ability to love him as much as he can. And one day that might be agape love. Because he has given Jesus all that he has at that moment. I invite you this week, as you live your life this week, to give everything to Jesus, to give all things that you have. Don't hold anything back from your Lord. Whatever it is, your family, your job, your finances, your opportunities, we withhold nothing from him, declaring it is all yours. Take it all, Jesus. It's yours. And for some of us, that might be a lot. And some of us, that might not be a lot on days that we can offer. Some of us, we might be drained, we might be empty, we might be emotionally, spiritually, physically exhausted. So we might not have what feels like a lot. But what determines if it's a lot or not is based on what it is we're giving. We give our all, it is a lot. And just like the widow's offering, our all is all that Christ asks. Our all is all that he desires. So I invite you to give God your all this week.